Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Tuesday, September 20th, 2022. We have a pretty special update today, I should say. Lots of things to talk about with space weather and seismic activity and also the climate here. Lots been happening over the past week or so. And I know that our presence online has not been as frequent, but there has been definitely a lot to talk about. So, folks, hopefully you were able to find yourself to this broadcast today and are able to get this report, because I think these are some things we need to start watching. Let's start with our space weather. Right now, we're sitting at solar wind speeds of 481.3 kilometers per second with a density of 8.80. Sunspot number 74. As the majority of the sunspot action is below the what would be considered as Earth facing and is not much of a threat. But the sunspot that I'm concerned with is AR 3105, formerly known as AR 3089. And it has made his 2-week trip around the backside of our sun, and I'll go to our website here and check that out. And it's very interesting to see that it has increased in size. Most of the time, these sunspots will decay. Now, I have a few theories on that, and I'll get into that here just in a second. KP indices coming in at 2 with a 24-hour max of a 3. So no real, real danger right now. That coronal hole, by the way, there was a couple of things that I want to go over as far as the strong earthquake is concerned here. Just a second when I get to that. But lots of things happened yesterday, and that was a first for me. So, in fact, let's just go ahead and go over to where are we at? Spaceweather.com. No. Let's go to our website first. I'll go ahead and make the switch. All right, that helps, right? All right, so this is the backside that I wanted to show you guys. AR 3185. Okay. We have seen sunspot regions appear in this form, this bright, this big. But this is also, if you guys remember, the sunspot that we had inside the coronal hole. Well, that active region is still faintly present in a similar scenario, if not the same exact setup. So here we have a possible coronal hole again, with sunspot activity decaying at this point, what it looks like to me, but still something to watch. And then right behind this, this one right here, we could see close to the most that we've seen as far as peak sunspot numbers when this group comes around. But the only thing that I feel like that this would keep from that being a possibility is that how quiet the rest of the sun is. So we have these areas that are departing as we speak, okay? And this is being sort of counted, half of it maybe. And we're at sunspot number 74. So by the time this actually starts piercing the eastern limb and continues to get to Earth facing, which is where my blue arrow is, just to give you an idea of the scale here, I'll get right with it all the way. So that's where Earth is, okay, the tip of my blue arrow. So you get the idea that the sunspot region that we're watching is well below the orbital plane of Earth, and it will be below us as far as any kind of brunt of this explosion that's coming. And I say it's coming because this will definitely harbor the capabilities of an M-class flare are larger. Now, that doesn't mean the Carrington vent is on the way, but just to be thankful for where we are in the solar cycle and the side of where we are with the orbital alignment with the rest of the solar system, we have that slightly strengthened magnetosphere right now. And I say slightly strengthened because when you have cosmic radiation dosage rate still of 2.5%, you're still dealing with a weak magnetosphere. It's been hovering at 5% over the weeks. Excuse me. And then finally dropping just a little bit because of the solar wind that we're going to be we experience, but also a really, really interesting phenomena that happened yesterday. But let's finish up with what we're going to be seeing here in the near future. Again, my concerns is the size of that, in the back. I'll let it come back around. It's a pretty big region. So lots of interesting activity. The possibility of another sunspot I mean, I can't believe we're saying this again, but another potential sunspot region within a coronal hole, and then right behind it, this massive, bright, active region that has been crackling already with C flares behind the sun. Now let's check out the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say. Let's zoom out here. Interesting data I have today. Checking out where we are. This is what I mean by solar system lineup here. I am already seeing what is coming in 2024 right now. And what I mean by is the Milankovitch cycle. You've got your gas giants already beginning to drop into place. There's Saturn. There's Jupiter. Now, this time, a little bit later, like January of 2024, February, I think, somewhere in that area, we will have Saturn. Jupiter will be over here. Saturn will be over here. And Earth will be in the middle of the Great Tug, the Milankovitch cycle, which is lining up to be at its peak sometime in 2024. But we already are on, if you really want to get technical about this, Earth right now is dealing with already this potential tug because of we have Neptune, Uranus, and Jupiter all lined up in a position to where magnetically, as this cycle continues, we will see Earth and other solar system planets being pulled slightly away. Nothing major, but again, we're talking TSI that gets increased or decreased by 1 square watt per meter. And that could be the difference of TSI that Earth could receive based on this pull. So bear with me. We're talking about decreased solar irradiance, total solar irradiance, just because of the fact that we're into a grand solar minimum. But then we have to deal with the mathematics of the Milankovitch cycle. And on this tug, where Earth will be in between those 4 gas giants, will that also factor in less TSI as Earth is being tugged slightly away from the sun? Again, we're not talking about, flinging Earth out into another galaxy or anything like that. I'm simply saying that the slightest pull on how long it takes our planet to get around the sun in the first place has to affect total solar irradiance in some way, shape, or form. So we have this grand cycle that we're approaching right now. Last time we had a grand cycle like this was the Little Ice Age, Maunder Minimum. And we happen to be alive for this, to where we have satellite data, we have all this proof to look at and to report on daily. And this is the same stuff that you are capable of looking up as well. So it's fascinating that we're alive in a period of time where we're watching it right before our eyes, and it's being totally ignored by mainstream media because of AGW. It's just fascinating. Anyway, that's for another show. Let's take a look at the SDO real quick. That massive little coronal hole there that was Earth facing yesterday. I do believe, and I think it's safe to say this as well, that we are the reason why we saw this 7.6 earthquake yesterday. Let's go over to space. This was yesterday's Space Weather's news. They change it daily. You can go up here in the corner in the right hand of your screen, change the date, and then hit view. And what we saw was, simultaneous explosions. All three sunspot regions at the southern part of the sun, we saw simultaneous explosions. Actually, this happened on the 18th, not yesterday. I apologize. Coincidence? Maybe not. 12 summers ago, SDO witnessed a bigger eruption with a dozen significant shockwave flares, filament eruptions, and CMEs spanning 180 degrees of solar longitude. Researchers studying the event realized that the blasts were a chain reaction connected by a wide-ranging faults in the sun's global magnetic field. Yesterday's event may have been the same. A CME left the sun following the triple explosion, but the jury's still out on whether it will hit Earth. No analysis are modeling the cloud's trajectory now, and right now they're just not showing much faith. But I believe, no, I don't want this. I believe yesterday's explosion here, the simultaneous explosions, 3 of them at the same time, and we were also dealing with an Earth-facing coronal hole. Now, I know that the solar wind does not reach Earth on an Earth-facing coronal hole for at least 2 to 3 days. But correct me if I'm wrong, it almost feels like every time we see an Earth-facing coronal hole with low KP, we almost get this immediate reaction within 24 hours. It's like someone rung the bell, That coronal hole it's disturbing the solar system, solar wind. So it's moving throughout the solar system. It's not just because it's not arrived yet, it's still going to ring our magnetosphere. So you have to factor in these 3 magnetic explosions on the sun simultaneously in the same pretty much area across the southern region of the sun, Earth-facing coronal hole, and we also have to take into consideration the position of our planets here in the solar system. I believe all of this has a connection when it comes to seismic activity. Now, say what you want. I don't think it's a coincidence. To me, this is science in motion. When you have this many factors that took place and are present that we can all view for ourselves, and then we have this massive earthquake. We haven't seen a 7.6 in quite some time. All right. On Monday, September 18th, the explosion happened on the 18th. The impact was felt quicker than expected within 24 hours. And again, I've made earthquake watch predictions, 6 point whatever it is, 6 point something, whatever. And I'll say the next 36 to 48 hours, and within 24 hours, we have the earthquake. So It's possible because we have a weaker magnetosphere that we feel these effects much faster. And plus, we are in the beginning of a solar maximum, which would mean that we are experiencing stronger action from our sun right now when it comes to solar wind, when it comes to these CME impacts. Again, it's not a coincidence. We have 3 explosions in the southern part of the sun, Earth-facing coronal hole, and then 24 hours later, we get a strong 7.6 earthquake, which they've downgraded it a little bit as well. This happened at 1805 UTC on September 19th. The agency is reporting a depth of 15 kilometers. And right now, we have not had any kind of reports of any deaths that I've seen yet at this time. There was footage. And here's another interesting. This is this 7.5 earthquake actually hits on an anniversary of the deadliest earthquake, 8.1 on September 19th, 1985. Interestingly, also came exactly 5 years after a 7.1 that killed 370 people and caused extensive damage across the center and south of the country in 2017. Another interesting note is that alarms for the new earthquake were sounded within 30 minutes after a nationwide earthquake drill marking the 85 and 2017 quakes. So, lots to go over for that. Interestingly enough, 17 was during the very beginning of a solar minimum. 1985. I'd have to go back and do some quick math real quick. Okay, so 85 was also during the beginning of a solar minimum. Correct me if I'm wrong. So to have this quake that's a 7.6 just about 5 years outside of these other two now that's just a coincidence, I guess. I don't know. But I'll have to go back and dig and see what I could find for 2017 satellite images. Obviously, we're not going to have it for the 1985 information, but still, this is definitely worth some more digging into. Just interestingly enough, that these earthquakes are happening during minimums, and then this one here, but this is not an ordinary maximum either. The strength of this maximum could be the strength of the minimum of 1985, for all we know. I'll have to go back and look at that as well. All right, let's continue on, because not only are we talking about earthquakes here, but we also have to report on Hurricane Fiona and making landfall in Puerto Rico. Now, unfortunately, it has caused the entire grid to go down, so this is going to be a developing story. We can only hope that this time around that the infrastructure changes that they've made since Maria have been enough to prepare them for a situation like this that will help them restore the grid much faster than last time, and also cut down on the accidental deaths that we were witnessing during Maria. People just getting electrocuted because of down power lines, not respecting, or just the whole infrastructure where we had trees tied up to light poles. Just so many deaths from Maria that probably could have been prevented had they been better prepared. So let's hope that they have received the necessary resources and that will help recover from this. It says here that Fiona brought widespread rain from about 5 to 10 inches across much of central, eastern, and southern parts of the islands, with localized amounts up to 500 millimeters, which is about 20 inches of rain. And of course, if that's happening in the mountainous regions, we can all fear for life-threatening flash flooding with landslides, trapping residents in the towns of Arequipa, Barranquitas, and I'm butchering all of these, but there's several cities here that have suffered from flooding and landslides. This is from the National Weather Service here in San Juan. Pretty decent size hurricane. Nothing too crazy, but the flooding is, unfortunate. And this storm is actually, very bizarre how it's going to turn and not make landfall. Well, not really. We can thank La Nina. La Nina is the reason why we had such a weak hurricane season last year. So many hurricanes fell apart. Now, here we are almost into October, and thank you very much to the gods out there for not having any dangerous storms impact the United States or the Keys, and so far, hopefully, Puerto Rico as well. It's been a much needed break. We've seen, some bad storms over the past several years. But La Nina is the main driver of why this storm is not going to hit the United States. And I'll show you here right now. I was looking at some stuff before the show. Yeah, that one. So let me get it back out. And we'll get into that in just a minute. Why is this show called Double Trouble? You're probably asking yourself. Well, I'll show you here in a bit. But I want everybody to pay attention across the Midwest here. The high pressure here, the high pressure in Alberta and the BC region here in Canada. All right. And of course, we still have high pressure churning out in the middle of the Atlantic. So this is going to take, when you have high pressure in the Atlantic, like it should be at this time of year, this is what drives our storms. So you see high pressure sitting right here, and we have a clockwise rotation. And this is why our storm is curving up and going away, because it's not only being knocked out by one, but two different high pressure systems. Okay. This is a La Nina for the last 3 years. Okay. Now usually it's more contained up here, but this is dipping down pretty low. And I think we're going to see a lot of that this winter as well. These cold fronts, these cold blasts, these systems will drop. Remember, cold air sinks. So this is not, illogical to think this. But these high pressure systems are driving these storms out, and hopefully they weaken by the time they get to our friends across the pond. But that's where they're heading, right to the UK, unfortunately. But they do hit much colder waters, and actually you're going to see in this forecast here that we are going to see chances for snow. Yeah, in Maine. Not that big of a deal, though. So far, this has been a pretty quiet, normal ending of summer, heading towards fall. But here's that storm moving, like I showed you, and more high pressure moving in across the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, also steering this storm and keeping it in that rotation of the high pressure that's out in the middle of the Atlantic. Another high pressure system behind it helping as well. That one kind of hangs out for a little bit, stalls out that high pressure system. More on the way again from Alberta, BC, through the northern plains. That high pressure will then change places with the one in the middle. And once again, we will see high pressure dominating the weather all over the United States. Now, the East Coast and the Northeast and the South, we're about to get wet here. Starting around September 27th, we'll really start seeing a wave of moisture, and here's why. Beautiful weather across the rest of the country, but here we have this approaching system coming through into the Gulf on the western side of Florida. Now, this is forecasted for Wednesday, September 28th, when this hurricane will be making an appearance on the western side of Florida. And according to this, now this is very far out, folks. We're 8 days away. A lot can happen. We're going to have to watch the models here over the next couple of days. Which way does this thing start tracking? If it starts tracking to the east, chances are it's going to continue to track to the east. If it doesn't track at all and it continues to go north-south like this, then Houston, we have a problem, because once again, we have high pressure dominating that's driving, if this high pressure is moved off any bit off to the Atlantic, it's going to pull this storm up the coast and then out to sea later. Now let's see what happens. Here is that low pressure hurricane probably making landfall around the 29th. Tampa Bay, I mean, we got to be on the lookout. But watch what happens here. Look at Jacksonville. This rain is intense. Still a pretty strong storm trekking across parts of Florida, well inland on Florida by September 30th. This is a Friday. Jacksonville, right now, it looks like you're in the path of this. So you get a wave of heavy rain, and then you get this hurricane. And I'm telling you guys, the way these isobars, as tight as these are, it tells me we're still going to have lots of wind with this system as it moves through. So we're already going to have this right here saturating the land ahead of this low pressure system as it goes up the coast. So this arrived in Jacksonville, then the storm. So you can say double trouble just with this one system. We get the rains, the heavy rains, the flooding rains, and then we get the flooding rains, the storm surge, and hurricane force winds, tropical storm winds. And then as it goes up the coast, oh yeah. Yeah, I don't like this storm at all. Lots of rain by October 1st. This is a Saturday. And as it moves across Saturday into Sunday, it starts to pick up a little bit of speed. But again, it's the high pressure that is driving this out. Now, this is obviously low pressure, bringing up into high pressure. But this storm is massive. And it punches a pretty good punch all the way through. I'd say the last really strong effects of this storm is going to be right here, Saturday, October 1st. And as we move into the Northeast, where the temperatures are going to be a little bit cooler than they are across the East Coast and the southern parts, that's why we're going to see this storm lose a little bit of steam. The winds will lighten up a little, not a lot, but a little. Talking 20, 30 mile an hour gusts across New York, New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine. Lots of rain, dreary, but that's about it. And as this high pressure system once again creeps back into the East Coast, we've got two. Here's one, here's two. Our system is well off. Dare I say that we have the setup for another? Yes, we do. And again, thank you, La Nina. This is what it looks like after 3 years of a driven, constant cooling of the Nino region 1, 2, and 3, 4. But according to this, a much less organized system will move across, once again, the Gulf and impact western Florida starting October 6th. Now, I hope that this is just a glitch in GFS. And as I advanced the model the last frame I could, it does appear that it starts to get organized once it gets over Gulf waters. So I hope this is just one of those ideas. But once again, we have very similar setup, high pressure dominating across multiple regions here in the lower 48. This is something to watch. It's been a very, very quiet storm season, and I'm kind of surprised to see storms of this magnitude at this point of the season, especially as strong as the first one that we're going to be seeing. That one could impact pretty badly across Florida, knocking out power. And then while trying to recover and get things restored, we now have the chance of another said storm to impact the region. Lots of high pressure out there, folks. Dominating colder weather is on the way, too. That's the other part I wanted to mention, is that I'm starting to see it. And like I said, I feel like it's been a normal transition from summer into fall. This is next Tuesday. Things starting to cool down across much of the northern parts of the United States. Still kind of nice. 80s, upper 80s, lower 90s in Oklahoma still. Warm weather across the Ohio Valley, but starting to see a cool down across the East Coast, and that's because of all the rain here. But look at this, guy. This is the classic. This is the classic jet stream for grand solar minimum, especially La Nina as well, but definitely warm across the mid part of the United States, cold and damp across the Northwest and the Northeast. And we are starting to see that polar air building up in the Arctic and trying to spill into Canada. Now, we are definitely seeing an Indian summer-like situation across the Central Plains into the Northern Plains states, from Texas all the way up to North Dakota. But the Northeast, the Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes, we're definitely, the Northern Plains states, Wisconsin, Minnesota, we're definitely starting to see hints of fall on the way. Now, the waters in the Gulf are pretty warm. So these storms that we have coming up are definitely going to have the ingredients needed to form and develop. But what's driving these storms from making, previous landfalls is mainly because of La Nina. How we are now into our third year of La Nina. Let's go ahead and check it out, actually. Here's the index, 3.4. We're sitting right at 0.892 below baseline. We only need to be at 0.5. We've been steadily dropping since July. I would say this trend will continue over the next several months. So we got a lot to watch, folks. We'll keep our eyes on it. Man, just look at that. And that says it all right there, folks. How strong, how much cold water is being infiltrated in that 3-4 region from the 1-2. That speaks volumes right there. It's hard to believe these AGW people telling you that we're warming at an alarming rate when you see evidence of our oceans doing this. Just madness. But anyway, lots going on. We're going to continue to monitor this. Storm has definitely gotten our attention. Things have been sparse for us on this channel. We apologize. We appreciate everyone who is still following us, people who are still making monthly pledges to us on Patreon channel. I can't thank you guys enough. Folks like Patricia Clayton and many others who are long-term members of our Patreon, and we just appreciate the patience that you've had with us. We know we haven't put out the content that you guys would probably prefer, but circumstances out of our control is all I can say at this time. But anyway, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Of course, my lovely wife, Mari, hello in the chat. Arnold, good to see you in there. Melody as well. A Baker, hello. Danny, let's see here if I've got lots of new faces in here as well. It's been a while since I've been on, 3 weeks? So maybe there is a lot of new faces here tonight, today, wherever you are. Stan, good to see you as well. And Henrik from Denmark. Long time no see. Good old friend there. And many, many other. Matt Bros from Nebraska. Need to put some time aside and have a chat with him about what we're seeing. He got a hold of me about a month or so ago talking about crops, how they were pulling the crops out of the ground because they weren't going to be suitable for harvest. So they were just going to turn them into animal feed, and how that's just not good stuff because that still costs money to process as well. There's chemicals that are in this premature pulled crop that you have to mix in to make it not lethal for animals to consume. So lots of catching up I have to do, folks, and just bear with me. I will try my best. Tempting to do another show tonight, honestly. If you guys go to my Twitter feed, I have some thoughts and comments about an interview that I posted. I want you guys Don't waste a lot of time. It's an hour and 29 minutes long. I've only been through about maybe 15 minutes of it, but I thought I had it queued up, but I don't. But it's our old pal Jared Kootenai, and he is telling everyone that CO2 has no benefactor, no benefits at all to the planet. CO2 does nothing for the planet, according to Gerald. There's nothing beneficial from CO2. And that he believes that CO2 should be dropped to 280 parts per million, the way it was 100 years ago. By the way, that would mean cooler temperatures, shorter grow seasons. Shorter grow seasons equals less food. Yeah, how smart is he? All right, that's going to do it for us. We hope you enjoyed our program, and please take care out there. And remember, as always, I promise, we will talk soon.
Do you like the show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.